Good evening. Tonight it is my pleasure to welcome you to the inaugural Dragons Dialogue Speaker Series, kicking off at the start of Glenelg's 60th anniversary. First, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. This is all about fostering conversation between us, friends, family, and the school. For tonight's format, we will have our keynote speaker followed by a panel to discuss the content of the presentation. So it is on this special night that I'm going to welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Fotuhi, the founder and chief medical officer of NeuroExpand Brain Center, a neurology services organization to maintain, improve, and promote brain health. Through its standalone treatment centers, with one located here in our backyard, they are helping folks treat patients seeking relief from a broad range of conditions. Dr. Fotuhi is regarded as one of the nation's foremost authorities on memory loss and dementia. Dr. Fotuhi received his medical degree from Harvard Medical School and his Ph.D. in neurosciences from Johns Hopkins University. You may have also seen him on Dr. Oz, The Today Show, and other various media programming. But tonight, he is here for us. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Fotuhi.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you very much for being here tonight. I know that you're aware of the baseball game starting at 8 o'clock. We'll try to wrap up in time so we can catch the game. It's really an honor for me to be here and to talk to such a distinguished audience. Hold on one second, please. Okay. I will be talking to you about memory, what causes memory loss, why we forget names, are there things that we can do to reduce our risk for Alzheimer's disease, are there things that we could do to reduce our risk of becoming really forgetful in our 50s and 60s, and topics related to that. So are these the kind of things you're interested in? Okay, so we're in the right place. Sorry. I've been really fascinated with this topic for more than 25 years. I have published several articles about memory loss, and how our brain has significant degree of plasticity, which means it can change for better and for worse. I've also published my findings in 3 books. This is my most recent book, Boost Your Brain. It's about how you can actually literally make your brain bigger, and that's the thing that I'll be talking to you about tonight. I have covered these topics in my interviews with lots of media outlets, NBC, I was on Today Show, NPR, CNN, but my favorite is really Dr. Oz. He's becoming a friend. Every time I email him, he emails me back. I've been on his show 3 times, and in the most recent episode, I was talking to his producer about what are the fun things you could do to improve your brain function, and one of them is dancing. So I suggested that we show Dr. Oz how to do the cha-cha. So he agreed, and she agreed, and we all planned to do that. And right before the program taping, they said, "You're going to dance with Dr. Oz." I said I was going to show him. Yeah, they said you show him, but then you actually hold Dr. Oz and dance with him. So of course that was the plan, and I showed him how to do the cha-cha, and I went on to hold the great Dr. Oz in my arms. And show him to the cha-cha. And I tell you, he's such a wonderful man, a great physician, but a terrible dancer. I feel sorry for his wife. But anyway, he appreciates the importance of brain health, and that's why he's invited me to be on his show 3 times. During the next 35 minutes, I'm going to tell you about what happens to our brain with aging, how to reverse the effects of aging on our brain, and then I'll tell you about the program that I have put together myself and with my colleagues in our NeuroExpand Brain Center. So a little bit about how the memory parts of the brain work. This is a bird's eye view of the brain. This is the front, this is the back. There's an outer layer of the brain called cortex. This is the part of the brain that's important for long-term memory. And there's a part of the brain, it's called hippocampus, which is important for short-term memory. So let's do a little practice together. I want you to think of the house you lived in when you were in elementary school. Can you do that for me? I actually want you to do that. See the kitchen, see the front door. Do you see it? Do you see your room? Isn't it amazing? Isn't that a beautiful thing? You can actually see the house with a certain amount of specificity and with colors, and you can actually see it. And that's a beautiful thing. You know, it's been like 5-10 years now. Okay, 15 years. For some of you, it still is the house. I saw some younger kids here. But that's a beautiful thing. It's an amazing capacity that we have, that we take for granted, that we can regenerate memories from distant past and we can see it. And we should be thankful to our cortex for that. But then if I give you a phone number to memorize, that would be something that you need your hippocampus to work. And let me just give you something to memorize. I'll give you my last name, the spelling of my last name. It's really difficult. It's Fotuhi, which is F-O-T-U-H-I. Can you memorize that? Fotuhi, okay? Can you just say it? Okay. So this is an example of a difficult name that I want you to memorize. Just say in your mind Fotuhi, see the letters, Fotuhi. So can you memorize that? Okay, so whoever remembers that will receive a check for $10,000 from Shelley at the end. Okay, so memorize that, please. And if I forget to ask you, remind me. Okay, now why is it called hippocampus? It's called hippocampus because if you take that part of the brain out and you put it on a table, it has some resemblance to a seahorse. And if you cut the hippocampus and look at the slide under a microscope, you'll see a beautiful row of cells. All these cells are what makes us who we are. We are who we are because of our memories, aren't we? If we enjoy something, it's because we remember that something felt good and we're going to do it again. And the things that we cherish the most are our memories. The memory of when you got married, when your child was born, and everything else that you remember. And it's all because our hippocampus was working properly, that was able to absorb the information in short term and then shift it to cortex for long-term memory. So here's one cell, you see it? Here's one neuron. It has a center and a tail that goes like that. Like that. So these neurons are critical for our ability to form new memories and keep them for a lifetime. But there are two things that are special about hippocampus. There are some positive things and some negative things. Which one do you want to hear first? Negative things. That's the usual request. All right, I'll tell you the negative thing first. The negative thing is that the hippocampus shrinks, atrophies, faster than the rest of the brain. In fact, the hippocampus shrinks by about 0.5% per year after age 50, and this is the reason that people have memory lapses after age 50. Imagine if, for example, the part of the brain for walking was very vulnerable to effects of aging, then people would have difficulty walking after age 50. And so if you're past 50 or maybe 35 for that matter, and you think that your memory is not as good as it used to be, you can blame not having a perfect hippocampus. So the next question is why? Why is it that this part of the brain that's so critical, so important to us, shrinks? And that's the question I've been trying to answer for the past 25 years. And here's what I've discovered. The reason our brain shrinks the reason that our hippocampus shrinks has to do with a lot of medical conditions. Most people think of Alzheimer's disease when somebody talks about memory loss, getting lost in a familiar neighborhood, or things of that nature. People think that Alzheimer's is the cause of memory loss. But in fact, these other things also contribute to memory loss. Diabetes, hypertension, obesity, stroke, sleep apnea, concussion, and Alzheimer's. All of these have been shown to shrink the hippocampus and cause memory loss. If you look at people who have diabetes, diabetes is not under control, their brain, their hippocampus is smaller. The same thing goes with people who have high blood pressure that's not treated. And the worst of them is actually sleep apnea. Now, let me show you some examples of these. Here's a picture of a brain that shows what happens in patients that have sleep apnea. This is the side view of the brain. Here's the front, here's the back, top and bottom. And these areas in red are areas of the brain that shrink in patients who have untreated sleep apnea. Do you know what sleep apnea is? Sleep apnea is a condition in which people snore at night and feel tired during the day, and at times, if they're in a lecture, they may doze off like this. So let's see. If you doze off at this late in the day, I don't blame you. But anyway, have you seen people who just doze off in lectures, in presentations, during lunch for that matter for some people? So that's called sleep apnea, and it's dangerous because it shrinks your hippocampus by a lot. It shrinks your cortex, the outer layer, and hippocampus by 18%, and all these areas are areas that shrink. So that's one reason. The other thing is obesity. The bigger the belly, the smaller the brain. And that's really unfortunate because, in our nation, we have a major problem with obesity. Now, obesity doesn't just cause heart attacks and, ulcers and neuropathy. It actually impacts your brain. And here's a graph that shows the relationship between body mass index and hippocampus volume. The bigger the belly, the smaller the hippocampus. These are diabetic patients and non-diabetic patients. So whether or not you have diabetes, the bigger the belly, the smaller the hippocampus. In fact, if somebody is overweight, their brain already is 8 years older than it would be if they were not overweight. So that's a big problem. While a lot of people are focusing on Alzheimer's, they're missing the boat on the fact that there's a treatable, fixable condition that is shrinking the brain, and nobody seems to sort of pay attention to that. To me, that's a tragedy, that there's a treatable, fixable problem that's shrinking our brains and we are not focusing on it. Obviously, it's not easy to treat, but okay.
We've got somebody.
Okay, I'll move on. So, the other thing that can happen to our brain that can cause shrinkage in the brain is actually anxiety, stress, and depression. The longer a person has been depressed, the smaller hippocampus gets. So that graph that I showed you for obesity and the size of the hippocampus also can apply for someone who has depression and the size of the hippocampus. Now, if someone has multiple risk factors, it's worse. So if you just have diabetes, that's bad. If you have diabetes and hypertension, that's really bad. If you have those two and you have a sedentary lifestyle, that's even worse. If you have all the risk factors, all the vascular risk factors, your risk for developing dementia in late life is 16 times higher. So let's say your risk is, let's say 2% in your 70s. If you have all those risk factors, your risk then would be 32%. So this is a healthy looking brain, and this is a brain of someone who has multiple vascular risk factors. The other thing that I think we need to appreciate is the terrible thing that happens to our brain with concussion. It's been in the news lately, and I think it's about time that it gets the attention it deserves. When people play football and bang their head, guess which part of the brain shrinks the most? Make a guess. Brilliant. You're absolutely right. And this is something that your doctor doesn't know, for that, neurologists don't know. This is fairly recent publications. But even if you play football and don't hit your head, just all the collisions that you experience in a rough football game, like a college football, that too causes shrinkage of the brain. Why? Because when those body-to-body collisions that we see in football, the brain sort of gets accelerated and decelerated. The brain hits inside the skull and then bounces back. If it happens once or twice or 3 times, a person may not have symptoms, but if it happened thousands of times, it bruises the brain, it tears the fiber bundles in the brain, and the part of the brain that shrinks the most is the hippocampus. So let me show you a study that showed just that. In this study, they looked at the brains of college football players. These are not NFL players, this is just college. And they measured the size of the hippocampus and compared them to kids who did not play football, and those who played football, some had concussion, some didn't have concussion. And so they compared the 3 sets of brain, sort of healthy controls, athletes who did not have concussion, and athletes who had mild traumatic brain injury, which is the same thing as concussion. So here's a healthy looking hippocampus in an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old. You see that? It kind of looks like a thumb. Or now look at this and look at this. Look at this part and look at this. Let's call this A and B and C. So which one is bigger, A or C? A. I mean, this is pretty significant, isn't it? These are college kids. This is not about someone with Alzheimer's disease. And now look at this, the average of brains of college football players who did not have concussion. They did not report an episode where they banged their head on the ground. Look, if you look at this one, A or B, which one's bigger? A. Even with naked eye, you can see that. So we need to make our kids appreciate that rapid collisions, body to body or head to head, really impacts the brain, even if they don't get a concussion at the time of collision. And I know, and I feel bad that football is such a wonderful part of American life, and you can't possibly live without it. I mean, I can't. But we have to realize that these people are paying the price. The same like a boxer will pay a price, and people who go into it have to realize that they are putting their brain in the game and not just their bodies. All right, this is what happens to your stress. No, it's a healthy-looking neuron, a neuron under stress. And this is that slide that I told you about in terms of depression and size of hippocampus. So the longer a person is depressed, the smaller hippocampus gets. So if you worry a lot, if you worry that you're going to get Alzheimer's, you're actually contributing to getting it. And I'm serious. I mean, it's been shown over and over that stress is really bad for you. Cortisol, which is a stress hormone, goes up when you're stressed, and there's a correlation between more cortisol and a smaller hippocampus. See, this whole thing about the fact that your hippocampus is a constant, dynamic state is something that I feel I have put together. And so many studies have published, but very few people have put them all together. That, wait a minute, diabetes shrinks your brain, stress shrinks your brain, concussion shrinks your brain, and especially the memory part of the brain. So if you want to do something, we have plenty of things to do. We shouldn't just sit around and wait for someone to discover an Alzheimer's drug. There are many points of intervention for us to intervene. So these are the bad things, but are there things that we could do to sort of favor the balance in our, toward a bigger brain? So these are the things we talked about, and these are some of the things that have been shown to improve brain health, and these are the things that have been shown to literally reverse the shrinkage that happened in the brain, whether or not you've had these factors. So let me just be clear. So if you have a concussion, your brain shrinks. If you have diabetes, your brain shrinks. So whatever cause your brain has experienced atrophy, you can reverse it. So regardless of what was your history, now that you're in front of me, there are things I can do with you to reverse that. What is the science? You just pretend that you're skeptical. Don't just trust me. Just say, Dr. Fotuhi, with all due respect, show me the data. Show me the science. Why should I believe that anything I can do in my day-to-day life would make my brain bigger? How could that be? My brain is like a computer. How could my brain actually get bigger? Well, let me show you some evidence. The first thing you could do is to exercise. The first thing you could do is to get fit. The second thing you need to do is to actually stimulate the memory parts of your brain. You should eat a Mediterranean diet and take a supplement called DHA. You should pay particular attention to your sleeping. You should focus your mind. And you should not say, I'll do it tomorrow. You should really do it starting this evening. I want you to feel that there's urgency in taking actions and being proactive in making your brain 3 years younger, 5 years younger. It is totally doable. It is totally doable for all of you to have a better memory next year than you do this year, and make your memory even better 2 years from now than it will be next year. It is totally doable. You just need to put yourself in that path, put yourself in a trajectory of someone who's going to get actually younger as the years go by. And it sounds too good to be true, but it is really the case based on the scientific evidence. Now let me show you some of the scientific evidence for these things. In this study, researchers wanted to see how a simple intervention such as walking would change the brain size. By the way, everything I've told you so far about adults apply to our kids. Several studies have shown that if you have adolescent kids, teenagers who are obese, and compare them to their classmates who are not obese, the obese kids have a smaller hippocampus. And if you then look at the reverse versus kids who are in shape versus kids who are not in good shape, the kids who exercise and are fit have a bigger hippocampus than kids who are out of shape. So everything I told you applies to our kids. But this study was in adults, this study was in people in their 60s, and what they did was to invite people who are in their 60s and 70s to participate in a walking experiment. They wanted to know if walking impacts the brain. They put participants in 2 groups. One group did walking exercises, walked for 45 minutes 3 times a week, and the other group did stretching exercises. And the group that walked 45 minutes started by 5 minutes and then 10 minutes. The requirement to enroll in this study in Midwest was to have a sedentary lifestyle. And as you can imagine, it wasn't difficult. They had plenty of participants. But since these participants were not used to walking, they started with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and so forth. And the other group did simple stretching exercise, not Tai Chi, not yoga, simple exercise. And then they measured the size of their hippocampus before the study, in the middle of the study, and at the end of 1 year of the study. And here's what they found. So let me ask you, what is this part of the brain called? And what is this part? Okay, so they measured this part with MRI and put the volume this way. And this was baseline, 6 months, and a year. So at baseline, they all had more or less same size hippocampus. This is the trajectory of people who did the stretching exercises. So people who did the stretching exercises had significant atrophy in their hippocampus. But this is what happens to them anyway. It's not that stretching caused the shrinkage. This is what happens to people once they go in their 60s and 70s. But look at this group. These were people with the same age, same education, and over a 1 year period had incredible increase in the size of their hippocampus. So a simple intervention as walking 45 minutes 3 times a week had made a difference in the size of their brain. These people did not change their diet, they did not do anything else. They just walked. And other studies have shown that people who walk 1 mile a day reduce their risk of Alzheimer's disease by 48%. So walking is the best thing you can do. It improves the size of your brain, it improves your memory, it reduces your risk for Alzheimer's disease. Now, the other thing that's good for the brain is memorizing things. The more you memorize, the bigger your hippocampus gets. Because hippocampus is the part of the brain for memory. And so the more you memorize, the bigger it gets. And there are many studies that have shown just that. If you exercise with memorizing things, if you exercise the memory part of your brain, it gets bigger. Just like if you exercise your muscles, it gets bigger. The same happens in your brain. So use it or lose it applies to your hippocampus just as much as it applies to your muscles. And there's no excuse for saying I'm too old for this. That is just an old excuse I do not buy at all. I have no sympathy for people saying, well, I'm 65. So what? Or I'm 85, so what? You're not dead. And the part of the brain that has, for memory, has that innate ability to grow regardless of your age. Yes, it grows more when you're 7 years old or 5 years old or 12 years old. That is true. It grows much easier. But would you believe me if I said, look, give me a group of people in their 80s, give me a lot of money and a lot of time for me and for them, and give me 3 months, and in 3 months, all of them will be in better physical shape. Do you think it's possible? Of course it's possible. You go to the gym these days, you see plenty of people in their 70s and 80s who look better than we do. So it is totally doable and possible to get in better physical shape. And now what we have discovered is that the same applies to our brain. It is possible to get our brain in better shape, but we just need to do it. And so the first thing to do is to do physical exercise, be strong below your neck, but you can also work on making your hippocampus bigger by memorizing things like memorizing names. Memorizing a new language. In this study, people were, this was medical students, then researchers took MRIs of them before studying for their board exam, the day after the board exam, and then 3 months later, and they saw that the brains of these kids grew in size as they were studying. And so the more they studied, the bigger the hippocampus got, and so this is the parts of the brain. So of all the parts of the brain, when the kids were preparing for the boards, it was the hippocampus that grew. So hippocampus has a great deal of plasticity and it grows easily. The other thing that's important, although not as important as physical exercise and mental exercise, is diet. I have a whole lecture on diet, but the bottom line is a Mediterranean diet is good for you and for your kids. Low carb, high protein, fish, vegetables, not too many steaks, occasional steak. And the one supplement I recommend is called DHA, or have you heard of omega-3 fatty acids? So the two important omega-3 fatty acids are DHA and EPA. And those are particularly good for the brain. And the studies have shown that if you increase your DHA, you can actually increase the size of your hippocampus. And people who have dementia have much lower, people who have low DHA are more likely to get dementia. That's my own research. All right, so we talked about exercise, we talked about, teasing your memory, we've talked about your diet. The other thing that's really important is sleeping well. People who sleep fewer than 6 hours are at risk for stroke. And stroke is terrible, right? I mean, you're not going to argue with me on that one. Stroke is really bad for your brain. Stroke is the #1 cause of disability in the United States, the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States. 700,000 people get stroke every year, and 70% of strokes are preventable. So I think we really need to make that a priority for our government. I wish that Barbara Mikulska was here so I could tell her that. I mean, we need to do things that are easy to do while we're looking for the magic pill that would prevent us from getting Alzheimer's disease. But in this study, what they did was, they had people who had sleep apnea, and they treated the sleep apnea to see if the hippocampus bounces back. Like, it's one thing for the hippocampus to shrink with sleep apnea, but if you treat it, would it grow back? That's a common question people ask me. Would the brain go back? And the answer is yes. In this study, look at this, they saw these patients were started on treatment with CPAP. Have you heard of CPAP? It's a mask that is used for treatment of sleep apnea. And you saw that if you compare the day they started with CPAP and 3 months later, if there's a growth or not, if there's a growth is short in color, there was indeed an increase in size. In these yellow patches are parts of the hippocampus that grew back. So simple treatment of sleep apnea makes your hippocampus grow back. And a lot of people actually report having better memory. The other thing that's good for you is relaxation, and particularly meditation. Meditation is a very powerful technique that improves blood flow to your brain and has been shown to increase the size of your hippocampus. Again, this is the side view of the brain. What is this part of the brain called? And this part of the brain? And look, this area that are in color are area of the brain that grew in people when they meditated 2 months. So from beginning, 2 months later, the brain grew back. Isn't that incredible? I mean, your brain is constantly in a state of motion, shrink, expand, expand, shrink, shrink, expand, depending on the 6 or 7 things that you do on a daily basis. So if you're stressed out, you eat a big hamburger with the French fries, and then you go back and stress more, you come home, you worry about everything that should have happened, that didn't happen, and have some more, fried chicken, and then watch TV, fall asleep in front of TV. That is the lifestyle that's going to help you have a much smaller hippocampus than somebody who wakes up in the morning, does a little exercise, maybe goes to work, 10 minutes in the middle of the day, takes a little break, do meditation. For lunch has some fruits and vegetables, and then goes home, plays with the kids, has a wonderful evening, and then sleeps by doing some Sudoku or something. That is a kind of lifestyle that's doable, and they are additive. If you do all the negative things, you end up one way. If you do all the positive things, you end up one way. And this is not my theory. This is something that's been shown based on science. This is my lovely family. Speaking of going home, this is my wife and Nora and Maya. And the point of this slide is that we have an obligation to teach our children to do the things that we know for a fact are good for their brains. They need to eat the kind of things we talked about, including taking DHA. They need to learn new things, the new language, or go beyond what the usual requirement is for the school by having them play fun things. The one thing about kids is that they learn well if it's a game. So putting them in hobbies that include both learning and physical activity would be particularly good for them. So it's dancing or other activities that gets mixed up motion and learning at the same time. And the sooner my girls are, if you ask them what are the 5 things that are good for the brain or 5 things that are bad for the brain, they just rehearse it like this. Or things have been brainwashed. But they're really brainwashed because if I want to do something, like if there's a French fries and I just take one little French fries, they look at me and say, Dad? And of course they don't touch it. They are so conscious. Like you go today, they were eating some cereal and on the box said sugar. I said, Dad, isn't sugar not so good for you? And I said, let me see. It's just a little bit. Come on now. So let me tell you about the program. So I've been learning these things, and I've been reading about these things, I've been writing about these things, and then 3 years ago, I said, enough of academic work. I need to do something useful for the world. Just me sitting and reading and writing about this to my colleagues is not going to change the world. So I will just go ahead, take a risk, and put a program based on all the things that I shared with you. Because it's not easy to just tell people, go do it. It's like saying, tell people, go do your taxes. Everything is there, just do it. Or just tell people, get in shape. It takes some planning, it takes some supervision, it takes monitoring, it takes counseling. So I put a program that's called Brain Fitness Program. And the goal of the program is to reduce your risk for Alzheimer's, make your brain 3 to 5 years younger, and each patient receives a comprehensive initial assessment followed by a personalized treatment. And again, the short-term goals are to think faster, remember more, improve efficiency of problem solving, have a sharper focus, react quicker, enhance your self-esteem, and brighten mood. See, one of the biggest obstacles for people to improve their memory is the fact that they think they're not good at it. So with the exception of kids in this audience, how many of you think you're good with remembering names? This is actually a good audience. More is coming up. Good. It's getting better every number of minutes. So I think that is great, but the truth is you're all good in remembering names. You just think you're not. And that's the biggest obstacle for you to actually be good in remembering names. You have to believe you can do it. And I tell you, we see patients all the time, and all of our patients do it. We teach our patients how to memorize 20 things, 40 things, or 100 things, forward and backwards, And they all bid with me or say, Dr. Fotuhi, I'm telling you, I will not be able to do that. And I say to them, believe me, you will. And they say, Dr. Fotuhi, I won't. They say, okay, just that's okay. But just go to the program. And by the time they finish it, they say, I can't believe I just did that. They just, even when they memorize 100 things, they say, I can't believe I did that. And it's because we know you can, even though you think you're not capable. And our long-term goals are help to regrow brain cells in the hippocampus, establish a brain-healthy lifestyle. See, we treat our patients for 3 months, but we repeat things over and over during that 3 months to the point that it will become a part of their lifestyle. So if I teach you that, Mediterranean diet is good, that trans fat is bad for you, and I teach you that never ever eat a donut again. If you just do that simple change in your lifestyle, you're gonna save yourself some cells 20 years later. If I teach you something that, make sure that for snacks you don't have a brownie, you have an apple. That over thousands of days ahead of you makes a difference, like putting money in a retirement plan. It adds up. And so by being with us for 3 months, you really get brainwashed, sort of. You get it. It's not enough for a 1-hour presentation because there's so much to say. We're just telling you the surface. But with you, being with you day in, day out, you start to appreciate, I get it. And that aha moment happened to some of our patients the first week, and some of them in 10th or 11th week, but it does happen to all our patients. And what does our plan consist of? We do a head-to-toe evaluation. See, some people have a little depression, a little anxiety, a little ADHD, and they never knew they had it, or they think everybody has it, so what's the big deal? Well, it is a big deal, because if you treat it, it will get better. And all these other things, snoring, medications, that is a problem for a lot of people, too much medications. Edema, if somebody has edema in their ankles, it could be because they have not a perfect heart. If they have numbness in their toes, it could be because they have B12 deficiency, or early signs of diabetes before they have other signs. So we check, we do an inventory of all the things that affect your brain, and then make a short list for everyone, and then we treat it aggressively. We obtain some tests to confirm what we thought. So if you have sleep problems, you get a sleep study. We do a paper-pencil cognitive evaluation. We do a fitness testing, some blood tests, checking the blood flow to your brain, check your brain mapping, and then we treat you with a program that involves psychologists, exercise physiologists, and neurologists. See, we have a multidisciplinary program. So if somebody has anxiety, we just don't send them to a psychologist and sort of wonder what happened to them. We have our own psychologists, and we have our own exercise physiologists. And because we have everybody, we take your problem as our problem. All of a sudden, you're off the hook. Your memory problems becomes my memory problems. And we have no one else to blame. So you can't say, oh, the psychologist is not doing a good job, because we are one team and we're responsible for you. So the interventions include something called brain coaching, teaching you meditation, teaching you how to improve your day-to-day life. If you do Lumosity, you get better at whatever game you play. But what you need to do is to get better on your daily life. For some people, it's memorizing names. For other people, it's becoming more organized. So having a good organizational skill is a cognitive ability that we can teach you. And so we sort of figure out what's affecting your life and work with you on that. It's called brain coaching. Exercise therapy, neurofeedback, cognitive skills, diet, and we check people's progress every week because we want to see everyone improve every week. Does it work? It really works well. I'm not just telling you, I'm proud of what we put together because more than 80% of our patients have remarkable results. It's not that we do something incredible. Well, we do something incredible. But the thing is that these things can be done by other physicians, but other physicians haven't had that aha moment that, yes, people's brain can grow. And here's an example of one of our patients. He's a hippocampus in April, and here's that person's hippocampus in July. There was an 8.6% increase in this patient's hippocampus. This is not a study, this is not a publication, this is our patient. And the question is if that improvement over 3 months is sustained, or 3 months later when they're not in the program, it goes back. So this person started here, the volume was 7.2 centimeter cube, becomes 7.92, and then a year later it was maintained. In fact, it was a little bit bigger. So April last year, July last year, July this year, that increase in the hippocampus was maintained. Isn't that incredible? So it's not like this just something happened for 3 months and then it was gone. And of course, along with that, there was incredible improvement in memory, attention, concentration, and most other things. And as a byproduct of what we do, people's fitness get better. So, in summary, I hope I have convinced you that your brain is in a constant state of change, for better or for worse. And the genes that you have play some role, but they're a minor role compared to your lifestyle choices. Your lifestyle choices can actually change the expression of your genes. And if you have concerns about memory, please, don't think of it as a hopeless situation. Think of it as a weakness in your arms, that it can improve with proper attention, and it will improve. And I want you all to realize, you have a beautiful thing inside your skull. Your brain is just amazing. It has 100 billion cells, it can grow, it can change, and it's within you to make this wonderful brain even a better brain. And don't please ever say to yourself, I'm too old for this. All right, thank you very much.
Next up, we're going to have a short panel to bring this back to the community and to GCS. We're going to start by having you guys take a seat and then introduce yourselves to the audience. Greg, do you want to start?
Okay. I'm Greg Ventre, and it's my privilege to be the head of this wonderful school. Welcome, everybody. I'm also a teacher of students for more than 40 years.
My name is Madeline Rosewag. I'm an occupational therapist with a specialty working with children. I have a working relationship here at Glenelg Country School, and I am also personal friends with Shelley. So thank you for having me tonight, Shelley.
Good evening. I'm Emily Greenberger. I have a good relationship with Glenelg Country School, having worked here as the primary and lower school counselor, so thank you so much for having me. Since leaving Glenelg Country School, in collaboration with my husband, who's a child and adolescent psychiatrist, we opened up a mental health center in Howard County serving children and families. Thank you for having me.
What's my name?
And who can spell it?
Thank you.
Great. So we have 4 questions that we'll have for the panel, and we'll open it up to the audience. So the first question that I have is, in June of this year, U.S. News & World Report ranked Howard County as 13th in the nation overall for healthy counties. And so my first question to the panel, we'll start with Emily, and then everyone can chime in afterwards, is where do you see that we need improvements here overall? Just in general, Howard County could be us, or just all of us that are living here.
Sure.
Where do you see we're doing well?
Yes, we are. We are doing very well. I have 3 children of my own, and we live in Howard County, and I brag about it all the time. I have to say, because to know me is to know, I'm going to say it, that's why you have me here. Physical health, we do a wonderful job. And I think our schools do a wonderful job of promoting good physical health. I'm going to argue that we don't do as good of a job helping children to understand the importance of social and emotional health and to be healthy psychologically. So one thing I think I'm contributing to in my work every single day, and I know here at Glenelg as well, my colleagues who work on the wellness team, is to really help parents to see and our community to see the importance of helping our children understand the importance of psychological health. in direct correlation with your comments about the negative effects of stress, anxiety, worry. I see children in my office as young as 5 who are anxious and worried and having trouble falling asleep and are not doing well. So I would say we're doing incredible physical health-wise, and we focus a lot, but if we could bring that to the whole child and add spokes to the wheel, if you will, that include the importance of psychological health and wellness, we would be even better.
Greg, what about your thoughts on that?
My thoughts really include this notion that we've been talking about for a long time here at school, and that's balance. Trying to make sure that we are, yes, an academic institution, but we have people here every day from age 3 to over age 70 from the standpoint of students and faculty. And all of these people in community are at different stages of their own development. I was reading just this week that 3 high school football players, to make your point, died just this week. And they talked about how the 16-year-old brain is not a fully developed brain. Now, happily, we don't play football here at GCS, but well, we play football, we play soccer. So I think that encouraging faculty and encouraging everyone to try to include balance in their lives is a theme that we have been looking at for a long time. It's probably time again to assess how successful we are with it.
So I'm going to flip it around on you guys. What I told you I would say is, so one thing that you brought up, Dr. Fotuhi, was stress overall is something that impacts us. And Emily, you kind of touched on it. Greg, you touched on it a little bit. So what are the things we can do on the stress side to balance ourselves better? So I'll kick it off with you.
Well, I will need about an hour. I guess you have to realize that stress is something we create ourselves. It's not inherent in the world. We generate it in our mind for the most part. And so there are some standard recommendations for stress management. One thing is to list all the things that are wrong and stress you, and then write down the list of things that you can do to address those things. And then whatever is left is not your problem. So, for example, if there is ISIS situation in Iraq and Syria, and you're frustrated with that, and you want to do something, write an editorial, join a group, or do something within your power. But other than that, then you've done your share. The other thing to do is really meditation. Try meditation. Meditation is wonderful to calm your mind. Mindfulness meditation does wonders to keep your brain in a calm state. And the third thing is to exercise. The best way to get stress out of your body is to actually exercise. Sweat it out on a treadmill, go for a run, play tennis. But these are some of the things that generally we recommend to our patients. And it's not as easy. If it were that easy, we would have this much problem. Stress reduction requires training. It requires talking with a counselor. Sometimes as you talk with someone who doesn't know you, and as you explain things to that person, you realize the solutions as you're talking about the problems. And we don't call counselors counselors, we call them brain coach, because people don't want to sometimes see a psychologist because they don't have a psychological problem. So we have brain coaches who do well with this.
Maddie, I'll flip it to you. What about in smaller children?
Well, I was just going to say, so while we create a lot of this stress, we also put a lot of stress on the kids. And going back to what Greg said, they need that balance. Kids don't create the stress for themselves. We need them to get straight A's. We need them to play 5 sports. We need them to be everywhere all the time, the best they can be. And just personally with my own kids, sometimes less is more. It's okay if you don't get an A on that test, maybe you'll get an A on the next one, just try your best. But I think to be very conscious of what we are putting on our own kids, because we are stressed and they see that, but then we're also putting stress on them, which will inevitably impact their success. and make them more anxious. So it's kind of counterintuitive for kids to get all stressed out.
Greg, thoughts?
Well, I was recently reading a book by Benedict Carey. Don't know if anyone's read it, called How We Learn and the Surprising Truth About When, Where, and Why It Happens. And since we're a school, obviously, we're focusing on the amount of work and the amount of stress we place on kids. And Mr. Carey's theory is that we should free the inner slacker in our children, allow distractions, allow changes in the study environment, break up study. And teachers, you need to hear this too, because we work on this calendar, on this academic calendar, and it's almost the way our lives are set. But we should be more flexible in allowing students to learn in different places, in different ways, allowing for distractions. He says, and I don't know if you would agree, but he says that the brain is a forager. It's not something that is very good always at focusing on one thing for a long time. It wants to roam, and we should allow it to do that.
If I may add something to that, I agree with you, Greg. I think our educational institutions prepare every kid to become a university professor. You have a choice of an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, and so we train all the kids to just be that, be good in that. And we should let our kids explore and show their own strength. And I guess the challenge is in the balance. How much time do we let them to play video games because they're exploring their mind? So I think as a school principal, we'll be challenged to figure out where to draw a line.
Certainly, and we are influenced by the cultural pressures around us, the external measurements that parents want us to measure up to, want their children to measure up to. I think if you allow teachers to be free from all of that, I think they would be very, very excited about doing things that right now I don't think they feel they can do. At our school, I do believe that we are good at this, but I just spent a day in a program listening to stories from people who don't have the kind of opportunities that our students might have at a school like this. And it made me run back and realize that we are very, very fortunate. But we don't represent the majority of students, certainly not even in our area. So I think you're right about the institutional structures are not conducive to this kind of health program. And it is ironic, is it not, that we know, as you say, we know what we should do, but it doesn't seem like cultural expectations and maybe even teacher and parental expectations are allowing us to.
Emily and Maddie, so based on some of the recommendations of the different things, whether it be diet and or it's stress reduction, it's meditation, and it's exercise, bring it back, what do we need to be doing more that you see?
Oh my gosh, one take home from me would be to talk to your children. Don't assume that you know what's going on or what they're thinking. I think we make a big mistake because I feel like I hear in my sessions all day long things that they don't tell their parents. They'll often start with, I can't tell my parents this. I'm like, why not? That'll be a 20-minute long conversation. So I think we should listen to our children, ask them what stresses them out. Ask them if they're okay, ask them how they're feeling, ask them what we could do to help, what we could maybe do to make things easier. And I think not underestimating just teaching them coping strategies, because I think a lot of times we assume that kids know how to do things and they don't. Letting them know it's okay to take a break, it's okay to go listen to music, it's okay to go hang out for a few minutes and come back. And just taking it easy on them a little bit would be my take home.
Well, Shelley, as I always tell you, just let them go outside and play. There's a lot of good benefits to just going outside and playing on the playground, climbing a tree, digging in dirt, and actually you can, that's a basis for a lot of foundational academic skills that people don't realize. I know that when I was little, it was sort of like get outside, shut the door, and you don't come back in until dinner time. And I don't think my parents did it because they were working on my growth. I think they were working on a little break for themselves, but I think that in hindsight that it was very beneficial. So that would be my take home, just go outside.
So, Dr. Fotuhi, you get dance, send your kids to dance, send them to things where they're working their brain and their exercise, send them outside to play in the monkey bars. Maddie always says, just have them go play in the monkey bars, his handwriting will get better, I promise. But what types of play really, because is it sitting down with the Legos for hours, or is it, what types of play? First, 45 minutes obviously of aerobic exercise, but what else?
Yeah, I think we need to respect the preferences of kids. We all have kids, and we know how one of them is really into math and physics and reading, and the other one is to art and music and dancing. And so I think the one thing to do is to let the kids explore their own talents and provide a supportive environment so that they can get better at what they do. Like my two little girls, Nora loves engineering and fixing things, and so if she wants to get a kit or electronic thing to put it in assemble and make something, I'll encourage that and let her do that, and that's her playtime because it's outside school and this is what she wants to do. And my other daughter may really love to practice her gymnastics, and when she wants to do ballet, so I'll put her in a ballet class. So we need to sort of respect the preference of our kids and not make sure that all of them get A all the courses. And so the balance there is, and as a parent, I must say I struggle with that too, because not every kid likes everything. And so you want them, as parents, you don't want them to get anything less than an A, so then you have to sort of come to terms with yourselves. So,
Any thoughts from you?
I think as far as the finding out what your kids like to do, what I find a lot of times a problem when I work with kids is they don't know how to play. It sounds kind of strange to say that out loud, but that they don't even know how to take that first step. So they're going to go, a lot of my kids will go for video games. There's that one out right now that's, somebody help me out, I can't remember.
Minecraft.
Yeah, oh my goodness, Minecraft. Everybody loves Minecraft, which is fine. Video games are fine, everything in moderation. But it's kind of like they need that play schemata to kind of get them started on something. So I personally, with the population that I work with, sometimes have to push kids into play situations so that they can work some of that executive function, that planning, that ideation, which all plays down the line into their executive functioning at higher level in school later on.
I'm not sure how I feel about moderation. I've found that there are times when excess leads to passion, which leads to expertise. And I was never a very good student, but I thank my parents for allowing the inner slacker in me to find things that I still do today. So I think that there's a way to really get into things and really enjoy them, and have it not necessarily be things that are academic related. Learning music, learning to play chess, learning to enjoy physical activity.
I guess also along the same line, learning about values.
Right.
I think one of the things I enjoy the most is to become a part of the play with my kids, and then not direct it, just participate and listen to their reasoning and explore their world. And it's actually fascinating to be a listener and hear what they think and how they see the world, and then as a parent try to, I don't want to use the word manipulate, but get them to do sort of what I want them to do, and as what they want to do, is sort of find a compromise so that they don't, for example, have permission to play video games more than 45 minutes on weekends, and that's it. And it may be good for them to do it the other days of the week, but as a father I say no.
And we should also remember that young people spend a tremendous amount of time in the presence of their teachers and in the presence of other young people. And so the responsibility on teachers is very significant to understand some of these things. Even if you are teaching in a very academic setting, Your brain is changing, as we've learned today. Your students' brains are not developed and they are changing. It seems like it's incumbent upon us to understand these issues better and to react to them in ways that make us more creative and more willing to change the way we go about our teaching.
At this time, I'd like to take some questions from the audience. We have a microphone set up right here. If you guys want to step to the microphone.
Hi, I'm Desi Moxley. Dr. Fotuhi, have you done any research with hydration of the brain?
I haven't done any research with hydration in the brain, but I tell you, it's very important, especially as we get older. You should definitely drink water, not soda. And there are things that, as much as my kids love it, it's just a no. And so one of the things that I've done with my kids, it said no soda, no sugary sodas. And now that they have not had any of it, they don't even ask for it anymore. But I think it's important to just make sure you're adequately hydrated with water.
Right. So that's part of the balanced diet, or the proper diet.
Yes. So in general, I think it sort of put that in perspective with the food. You want to eat healthy food. And by healthy means the short distance between farm to table. If things are in the boxes, you should minimize things that are coming from the cans and the boxes and tight jars. Ideally you want to get, your vegetable from a food market, bring it home, chop them up, get some olive oil, grill them or cook them, and have some tomatoes from your own garden, mix it up together, and that's your dinner. I think that mentality, and then drink water along the way. So that's the best diet, in my opinion. And hydration is a part of that.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Dr. Fotuhi. Very curious about, and it's great to see the data around how the brain is still able to grow and learn as we get older. I'm curious, though, about the differences in neuroplasticity as we get older. So does it get harder to change your brain? And are there things that we can do for ourselves now or for our kids now to maintain and increase the degree and opportunity of neuroplasticity as we all get older?
Yes. Our brain has an innate ability to grow. It's just a part, just like, our skin has an innate ability to heal itself if it's cut. You don't have to do anything, it just gets healed on its own. And our brain has this capacity to grow. And anything that happens to it that causes injury, the brain has a repair mechanism, which is an innate mechanism. We don't have to do anything for that to happen. What we could do to be clever, to be smart, is to tap into this existing mechanism, to take advantage of this existing innate capacity within us to take it in our advantage. So, elderly brain do have the capacity to grow, not at the same rate as younger people, but they do have the capacity. That innate capacity is still there. And we see in our elderly, we have many 80-year-olds who memorize 100 things, 100 things at age 80. We even have an 88-year-old who tried. She's gone to 50. So, our brain has the capacity to change, but obviously a 70-year-old has much easier time to do these things. There are 4 things that happen for your brain to grow. So when you exercise, or when you learn new things, or when you eat things, there are 4 things that is the basis of why your brain grows. For one thing, you have new brain cells. The new brain cells increase when you exercise. So exercise is the only thing that creates new neurons in your brain. You've heard this thing, you never have new neurons. Whatever brain cells you're born with, you die with, or maybe fewer, but not more. Well, research has shown that you do have new neurons, even in late life. And the way they found out was to ask terminal patients who are just about to die to agree to be injected by a dye and have their brain examined after they died. So they had 6 months life expectancy, and they agreed to do that. And so when they looked at the brain after they injected, they could see new neurons in the hippocampus, and only in the hippocampus, by the way. So one thing is neurogenesis, which happens at any age. So yes, as an older person, you have that capacity. The other thing that happens is more synapses. When you learn new things, you connect the dots. You have more connections. The third thing is you have more blood vessels. The blood vessels, for example, when you meditate, you have more blood vessels. You know, in old days, they used to call dementia hardening the arteries. Any of you remember such a thing? Hardening the arteries. And I think that was a good term. It was hardening the arteries. And things that increase blood flow is really good. And the fourth thing is a protein called P&FA, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which increases. So when you learn new things, a certain food, such as DHA, for example, blueberries, they increase levels of the BDNF. So the four things are new neurons, new synapses, new connections, and more BDNF. All of those things exist in our brain, and they do not go away just because we get older. So the things that you could do to tap into that is to exercise, make a habit of memorizing people's names, memorize 2 or 3 names every day, make a healthy lifestyle for eating, and if you can do meditation, stress reduction, on top of that, it would be better. But you have to do it like you mean it. See, what happens is that some people, they say, well, I exercise. I don't remember thinking that my memory got much better, although some people do. You have to do it in a concerted way. And I think the one advantage that we give our patients is that we provide them with the environment where they can see things at the same time, when they can receive this treatment at the same time, and each one may improve their memory by 5%, and 4 or 5 of them improve the memory by 25%, which is noticeable. So I think what needs to happen is a change in mentality and realize, the most important thing is to realize, yes, we can make our brain bigger and stronger. That is a possibility. Once we're convinced that's the case, then lead our lives accordingly.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I guess I'd kind of like to open this up to all you guys. It's kind of a broad, general question, I would say, but I know that as a student, as a high school student, I'm kind of starting on that career path, trying to figure out what I want to do when I get older, and being in school every day kind of helps me to figure that out between the social things that I'm exposed to and my learning abilities and what I learn every day when I enter school. But I think a lot of what also impacts the choices that I'm going to make in my later life, especially when I go to college and I start picking majors and minors, and I guess embarking on the rest of my life as having a career, is a lot of the personal experiences that I guess influence me and what I want to do and help me have a passion for certain things. So I guess I'm kind of just wondering, do you guys have any specific personal experiences that really made you choose to go in the jobs that you went into, and impact your everyday lives, and how much you enjoy what you do and how much you excel in the jobs that you guys have undertaken?
Wow. I want to answer that because that's an awesome question.
Is that an extra credit question?
I have a sign in my office that says, do what you love and love what you do. And I stare at it every day, and I can honestly say that I have that experience every day. If you can find that, amazing. I changed my major many times. My path changed directions, but my foundation has always been doing what I'm passionate about and what I love to do. And for me, it's making a difference. And I think in my career specifically as a social worker, helping children and families, I can see every day the difference that I make. And I just think if you can be passionate and you can believe in something and you can love what you do, you're good to go.
Doing what I currently do is not what I always wanted to do. I only ever wanted to be a teacher because I had such tremendous teachers when I was a student, and I respected them so much and they helped me so much. For example, I had a teacher who helped me overcome a speech impediment, and now I'm in a job where I speak almost every day in front of different groups. So teachers changed my life, and that's really why I wanted to become a teacher, and it's what I really did. What I do now is a result of having, I guess, being older and having done some other things and having interests in helping schools grow. But what I really am is a teacher, and that's really all I ever wanted to be. So I'm lucky. I never had to fish around to find out what I wanted to do. I had a path, and I stuck to it, and I loved it, and I would do it again. I'm doing it.
I originally had wanted to be a physical therapist, but then once I started school and got a feel for physical therapy and occupational therapy, it was really kind of the privilege to work with children and play. I mean, I go to work and we have swings and climbing walls and barrels and slides, so I mean, it's really what's not to love, actually.
When I was 6 years old, my father told me the story of a kid but lost both of his arms. There was an accident, he lost both his arms. And he had learned to paint with holding a pencil between his toes. And with his toes, he had drawn the most beautiful portraits with his toes. And my dad said, Majid, the brain is an amazing thing. It can do anything you want it to be. There is no limit. If you want to learn several languages, if you want to go to America, somewhere, be a famous scientist, whatever you choose to be, you can be. And that's what's really fascinated me with the brain and the idea that we have this amazing machine that has no limit to what can be done. So I just went a little overboard. I learned like several languages, and I got an MD and a Ph.D, and I do a lot of things, but I enjoy it.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to go ahead and conclude the panel. We will take questions afterwards, but we give a round of applause to our panelists and Dr. Fotuhi.